Hello, welcome to this video, welcome to my channel. My name is Emma and today I'm going to be giving you my October wrap-up as well as my November on my radar video for the books I read in October and the books I'm thinking of reading in November. I have a full mug of coffee with dark chocolate peppermint creamer, which is very exciting. I am one of the people who likes to start Christmas celebrations on November 1st. You can @ me. I've been added before. It's okay. I understand that Thanksgiving is a holiday in this country where I live, but you know, I just think that Christmas cheer can't come too soon. You know what I mean? Okay, just so we're on the same page. I am very excited about this video because I had a rather long list of books that I finished in October. I really buckled down and I really read a lot in October, at least a lot for me, and I'm very proud of myself, and so I am excited to share that with you today. I also have some really exciting reads on my November on my radar, so let's just get into it without further ado. I give more thorough thoughts on the specific books that I've read in my reading vlogs, so if you are looking for specific opinions on different books that I mentioned in this video, you can find those in my reading vlogs over the last month. I really just prefer to combine my wrap-up and my on my radar into one video, and if I do that, it would be way too long if I gave specific thoughts on all of the books that I've read. The first book that I finished in October was definitely the least spooky book that I read. It was The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. I had just previously read the 5th season, and so I was trying to finish up The Obelisk Gate before October started so I could have a month full of spooky reads, but I didn't quite make it, so this one bled over into October. I am absolutely adoring the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin. I have given both of the books 4.5 stars. My rating system with 4.5 and 5 stars is if a book has the potential to be a favorite, but I don't know if it's a favorite yet, I will rate it 4.5 stars. Then as time progresses, if I keep thinking about it, if it holds a special place in my heart, if over the course of a bit of time it reaches favorite status, then I will change the rating to 5 stars. This happened with The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Actually, I rated it pretty highly, but over the few months since I've read it, I've realized it's one of my favorite books, so I changed it to 5 stars. So this series, like I said, has the potential to be a favorite. It is some of the best fantasy that I've ever read. Granted, I have not read that much higher fantasy, but it is some of the best that I have read. The basic premise for the Broken Earth series is that there are 5 seasons: summer, winter, spring, fall. Those are not in order. And the 5th season, the season of destruction. It comes every few millennia, every few weeks, every few days. The time periods in between seasons vary, and every season is different, but every season is destructive, and it's about human beings trying to survive and trying to form communities in the midst of all of this chaos and destruction. If that sounds at all interesting to you, or you've heard anyone else speak highly of this series and you want to pick it up, I strongly recommend that you do. I am absolutely adoring it, and the 3rd book will be on my November on my radar. The 2nd book I completed in October was an audiobook listen via Scribd. It was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. I rated this book 4 stars. Actually, today I just finished the 3rd audiobook in the series and the final audiobook in the series, and I'm absolutely in love with them. They're so good. They were total comfort reads during this month, and I just thought they were so well put together. There's so many factors at play with these books. So the basic premise is that the mad scientists from classic horror have daughters that have been experimented on. So you follow these daughters as they find each other, they find their powers, they find sisterhood together, and as they try to stop these bad scientists from continuing to do bad science. Unethical science is probably a more scientific term for the bad science in the book, but you know, it is what it is. Set in Victorian London, it stars characters such as Mary Jekyll, Diana Hyde, Justine Frankenstein, Beatrice Rappaccini, Catherine Moreau, and Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson. Many others that I will not name who come in later and would be spoilers if I mention them now, but it deals with Victorian English society, Victorian England politics, science, sisterhood, trauma, abandonment, all of the things that you could want. The next book I finished in October was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I ended up reading the entire series and I totally adored it. Truly Devious, if you don't know, is about a young 16-year-old high schooler named Stevie Bell who is obsessed with this old cold case, the kidnapping and possible murder of the wife and daughter of Albert Ellingham, an extremely esteemed wealthy businessman who opened up a school for special children in Vermont in the 1930s. When the school first got up and running, his wife and daughter were kidnapped around the same time that he received a letter signed Truly Devious saying that they were planning, that these people truly devious were planning to do terrible, terrible things to Albert Ellingham. So Stevie Bell is obsessed with this cold case. She's a true crime fan and she gets into the modern day Ellingham Academy wanting to solve this case. That's her big goal, to solve the case. Then her classmates start dropping dead. So it's got a dual timeline. It's one of the most well put together murder mysteries that I have ever read, and it reminded me a lot of Agatha Christie, a lot of Sherlock Holmes, a lot of the classic favorite murder mystery stories. It was obviously very inspired by a lot of classic murder mystery stories and series, and I really appreciated that element as well, as I am an Agatha Christie fan. And I rated Truly Devious 4.5 stars with the same potential to move to 5 stars that I mentioned earlier. I had a lot of high ratings this month because I picked some really, really great books, so just prepare yourselves. Next up, I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, which just recently came out in the last couple of months, and I absolutely adored the story. I read it in 2 big sittings. It had me on the edge of my seat. I was completely blown away by the course that the story took, and I rated it 4 stars in the end. Mexican Gothic is about a young woman named Noemi who comes from a rich, affluent Mexican family. Noemi's cousin has recently married into an affluent English family that lives in a different area of Mexico than where Noemi and her cousin are from, and this cousin, a few months after her marriage, starts to send concerning letters to Noemi's father saying, I am afraid, I feel like I'm going crazy, I feel like I'm going to die here in this house is going to kill me. And so Noemi goes and investigates what's going on, to see if she needs to come home or if she needs to be treated psychiatrically, what needs to be done. And so the story unfolds from there. There's so much going on. It is such an awesome modern Gothic novel. It has all of the classic Gothic tropes, but with a little bit of a modern twist, and I thought it was amazing. Next, I read 2 Agatha Christie novels back to back, the first of which being Halloween Party by Agatha Christie, which is a Poirot novel. What could be more fitting for the month of October other than a Halloween themed book? This is about an ill-fated teenaged Halloween party thrown for these teenagers by their mothers. During the setup of the party, a 13-year-old girl starts bragging about having seen a murder, and by the end of the story she turns up dead. So Poirot comes on the scene and he saves the day, and this wasn't my favorite Agatha Christie novel that I've read. I liked it a lot more than a couple of the ones that I've read more recently, but there is one trope that Agatha Christie uses from time to time that is not my favorite and was present in this book. So that took it down a little bit for me, and I can't tell you really what it is because it's a major spoiler of who the murderer was, but it was well written as always. I love Agatha Christie's writing, and Poirot is one of my favorite literature heroes, and he was present and he was solving cases, so that made me happy. And in the end, I give this 3.5 or 4 stars. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna say 3.5 or 4. Hi, I'm editing this video and I just completely forgot about one of the books I read. I also listened to 3-Act Tragedy by Agatha Christie during the month of October, and that was the book that had the Agatha Christie trope that I didn't like as much. And I forgot about 3-Act Tragedy and somehow got it confused with Halloween Party. So I read 3-Act Tragedy and that was the one that is 3 stars, and then Halloween Party will be 4 stars. So just clearing that up. Then second, I read The Last Séance by Agatha Christie, which is a collection of Agatha Christie's supernatural short stories. I didn't even know that Agatha Christie wrote supernatural short stories, but she does, and here they are. These were all published separately, so they weren't intended to go together, but they had a really cool level of cohesiveness. They were almost addictive. Like, I normally am not a big fan of short stories, but these, I flew through them. I just wanted to see what the next one was and the next one and the next one. They were so great. This is definitely something I'm going to be able to come back to, even just to read my favorites out of the book, because I had a couple of favorites from the collection of 20, but this is definitely something I'm going to be able to come back to in future years and just sit down with for an evening and flick through and read some fun stories. I gave this 4 stars as well because it was just that good. And then next up, in rapid succession over the course of 3 days, I think, I read both The Vanishing, Stair and The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. I just finished up the Truly Devious series because it was eating me alive. I needed to know who it was, and actually I commend myself because both of the big reveals, both of the separate murderers, I guessed them before Stevie figured it out, so pat on the back for me. But yeah, I don't have much more to say because I said most of what I wanted to say about Truly Devious at the top. I rated all 3 of the books in the series 4.5 stars, with the potential, like I said, to move up to 5 stars if they prove to be a long-time favorite. Then I finished European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss, which is the sequel in the trilogy to The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. The series as a whole is called The Extraordinary Adventures of the Athena Club, and I also loved European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman. Out of the 3 books, it was actually my favorite. In the first book, they stick around in London and they just sort of are fighting bad guys in Victorian London, but in European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman, as you may be able to guess, they move to continental Europe, and in groups of 2 and 3 they sort of just travel all over the place, and it is so good, so fun. I just love all the characters and everything about the series. And European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman, I also rated 4 stars, like The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. That is all for all the books that I read in October. I had a really good reading month. I'm very proud of how much I read, and I am very excited to continue reading more and more and more. So with that being said, let's get into my November on my radar. Basically, this consists of the books that are left in my bookshelf that I haven't yet read, because I am not someone who buys a lot of books all at once. I like to buy 2 or 3 at a time when I start to run out of books. And so I've just got a handful left. Speaking of Victorian literature, right now in the month of November, we are reading Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. I am actually enjoying this a good deal more than I enjoyed Adam Bede. I am enjoying Jude the Obscure. I think it's very interesting. It's really set up really well. We've only read about the first 100 pages for class so far, but it's set up to be a really interesting story. Jude the Obscure is about a young man named Jude who has grand aspirations to be a scholar or a clergyman or something noble, something that will give him purpose in life. He really loves books, he really loves church, all that good kind of stuff, but then he gets caught up with a more lusty, animalistic type of woman named Arabella, and she sort of corrupts him, and then he goes throughout his life being torn between Arabella, his own desires for, you know, scholasticism, and this very, very pure, very holy biblical woman named Sue. And so you've just got all types of dynamics, pull, push forces going on. What I know of the plot that I just gave you, I know because my teacher likes to give us heads up on things like that and tell us what's gonna happen before it does, which is kind of like, whoa dude, spoilers, but you know, it's all right. He thinks it's necessary. So yeah, I will be reading this for the next 3 weeks, I think. The next book on my list is The Once and Future Witches by Alix E. Harrow. I am currently reading this right now. Can you see that little sliver? I'm that far in. And I plan to sit down tonight and get some good way through this, but this book is about 3 sisters who have been separated for a number of years, but they come back together. They were raised by their grandmother who knew witchcraft, and in a town called New Salem, where suffragettes are starting to become a staple of the streets, are starting to speak out more and more, the sisters decide that they want to join up with the suffragettes to bring witchcraft back. The tagline of the book is, "There's no such thing as witches, but there will be," which is just like witchcraft, suffragettes, two of my favorite things from history. I love it, and I love the cover. So far the writing is to die for. The way that she describes magic is so instinctual. Like it not everything necessarily makes sense, but it makes, like, in your brain, but it makes sense intuitively, if that makes sense. I am anticipating this is going to be a 4 or 5 star read, and I'm super excited. This is definitely a TBR book this month because I borrowed it from my friend Kelly. She was so gracious as to lend it to me because she thought I would like it, and I have to read it before we go home for Thanksgiving break, so that I can return it to her. And it is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. It's rather short, so I should get through it pretty quickly after I finish The Once and Future Witches. But this is about robots and social media. Yeah, it's about robots and social media and social commentary, and it's Hank Green, and I love Hank Green. I think he's a legend. Sci-fi is generally not my first choice, but I do tend to like sci-fi, so it's pretty exciting, pretty cool. Most of these things that I'm going to mention actually are TBR books, but calling it a TBR kind of puts too much pressure on me, and so I would rather call it On My Radar. But the next book on my radar is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, the third and final book in the Broken Earth trilogy that I was mentioning earlier. I am sad to read the last book, but I'm very excited to read the next book, if that makes any sense, and see how she wraps up the series. These covers are beautiful. I think this one is my favorite. It's just, the colors are exquisite. But anyway, I'm very excited to read this book and then get into some other of N.K. Jemisin's series because I just love her writing. I love her world building. I love the things that she does with her words. She is so good. One of my new favorites. Like I said, it's just a collection of the things I have left in my bookshelf. My next book on my radar is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. If I get to this will be my classic for the month. This is about a young woman who lives in New York and her sort of descent into madness, I guess, in the modern day. This has been called the female companion to Holden Caulfield, if that gives you any idea of what it's about, if you don't already know. I started to read this a little bit ago, but I wasn't really mentally in the place to read about a woman going crazy, so I just I put it down. But I think I'm ready now. I am excited to get into Sylvia Plath. I've heard that her poetry is divine, and so I want to read her novel to sort of acclimate myself to Sylvia Plath's sort of literary world before I dive into her poetry, because poetry is a lot harder for me to mentally grasp. But nevertheless, I love this cover, and I'm very excited to read this at some point soon. Then next are the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. These are very tiny, very old books. I have been just sort of reading my way through these, and this has been on my radar for every month since I started. So I so far have read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian. Next up I have The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and so if I just need something to lighten the mood, or want a little bit more fantasy, I will just pick these up and either one at a time. Maybe I'll binge the rest of them. Who knows? And finally, I have some audiobooks on my radar. So I have Scribd, like I said, and the only audiobooks that I have access to are the ones that are on Scribd. So before I made this video, I just went on Scribd and sort of looked at my recommended and wrote down the things that I thought I might read. So first is Come Tumbling Down by Shauna Maguire. This is the 5th and most recent installment in the Wayward Children series, which I have been reading since I started making booktube videos, and I am also totally in love with this series. It's so good. The Wayward Children series is about the children who fall through holes, who walk through doors into other worlds. Think Alice falling through the rabbit hole, kids opening things up and falling into another universe that is the place that they are most fit for, but when they have to come back, it's really hard for them to deal with because they've been ejected from the world that they most belong to, and they have to live in this world. And so there is a woman who is a former wayward child herself who collects these children and gives them a home and a place to have friends and be themselves. And it's a really great series with really great representation, character diversity, really fun plots, and a lot of plays on classic literature and classic fairy tales, and I just really adore it, and I recommend it if you haven't read it. Next Next is Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. This is actually, funnily enough, a book that I've been wanting to read since I was like in 7th grade, and I just never have. And so I figure there's no time like the present. It's on my audiobook service. I might as well read it. Next on my list is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have yet to read a single V.E. Schwab book. I know. But like I said, there's no time like the present. A Darker Shade of Magic is available on audiobook on Scribd, and so I'm gonna listen to it. I'm really excited. I'm a little apprehensive just because her books are so hyped up on BookTube, and I've even known people in my personal life who have read her books who are not readers, who like just adored them and talked about them all the time. And I just never quite made it. So some of her other audiobooks are going to be released soon, but the only one that they have right now is A Darker Shade of Magic, so I'm gonna listen to that one and see how it goes. Next, I have 2 particular Agatha Christie books that I've been interested in for a while. I sort of just pick Poirot novels at random and listen to them because my life goal is to read all of Agatha Christie's work. They are The Clocks and Death in the Clouds, which are both Poirot novels. And the great thing about Scribd audiobooks for Agatha Christie novels is that most of them are narrated by Hugh Fraser, who played Captain Hastings in all of the David Suchet Poirot movies, and his voice is great and he has a great grasp of the characters and everything because he was in all of those many movies. So anyway, I'm excited about that. And then my last audiobook is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. Rather short. It's just something that I've been wanting to read for a while, and so I'm excited to see the mermaid situation go down. It's only about 6 hours, I think, so that should be really exciting. And I will probably end up coming up with some other audiobooks, but those are just the ones that I had, the titles that I had at hand that I could come up with. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you want to see me read any of these books like in real time, see my thoughts on them, or if you want to see any of my more specific thoughts on the books that I mentioned for my October wrap-up, check out my reading vlogs. They come out once a week, ideally, unless I am not feeling too good, then I will generally not vlog, but they pretty much come out every week, so if you're interested in hearing more specific thoughts, stay tuned for those. But anyway, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are doing well. If you're not, I hope it gets better soon, and I hope that you love what you are reading. Goodbye, I'll see you soon.